All right. Well, happy Thursday, everyone. My name's Riley here. I'm with Bursting Silver, a senior consultant on the team, and welcome to our webinar series. Really excited for today's presentation from Keith here. He's our Chief Product Officer, and he's going to be helping set up all the best practices here for becoming an AI leader within your organization. So without further ado, please let's give a warm welcome to Keith Stout.
Thanks, Riley. Yeah, greetings, everyone. Thanks for joining wherever it is you're joining from. I am very excited to spend the next hour talking with you about artificial intelligence, leadership, privacy, and responsibility, and how to be responsible in your AI rollout. Riley will just let people in. I don't know why it pops up on that screen. Webinars are always fun. AI has become such an important topic. We are spending a lot of time talking with our clients at a senior level, reaching out to all of them, offering to have these sort of collaborative discussions because it is such a pressing topic and it's impacting all of our lives and even our society and definitely our workplaces. We're there to learn from them and share our learnings. And the nice thing when we do this is when we learn approaches or techniques or tools that some clients are using, we can share that with our other clients. So this is just a free offering, and I'm extending that offer to anyone who's joining us on this webinar today. Get on a call with us and collaborate and share no cost. One thing when we're talking with these executives is that everyone seems to share is a sense of pressure. There's a sense of pressure that we need to be using AI tools to do more with less. Everybody these days is trying to do more with less, and AI has this really strong promise of helping deliver productivity boosts. And so that pressure can come from the board or just that strain of having limited resources and trying to accomplish so much. The other side of that, people are feeling pressure, and we at Bursting Silver too have needed to address this too, is from our staff, employees, workers. Because there's a sense now in this day and age, if they're not using AI within their job and within their roles and duties to boost their productivity, they're actually falling behind on their competitiveness in the job marketplace. It's important everyone has the ability to go. Hopefully, we don't want to lose any of our good people, but we have a duty to make sure that we're keeping up with their skill set with what's happening in the broader job marketplace. So there's just a sense of a lot of pressure. So our goal here today is to help focus the options and identify a lot of the different risks and hopefully help you chart a path forward, or at least know how to chart a path forward. Riley has already introduced me, Keith Stout, Chief Product Officer here at Bursting Silver. So here are the objectives that we'd like to cover today. And we have a lot of content. We will have time for questions and answers at the end. I'm going to do my best to carve out some time there. I might rush near the end if we're running out of time. And to that extent, there should be a Q&A area in your Teams webinar software that you can put those in there. And then as time allows, we'll get to as many of those as possible. But what we want to cover until then is how to lead an AI rollout in a way that builds trust. So what does that mean, build trust, and with whom? Well, it's all your stakeholders. Certainly with your members. They have to feel confident that you are responsible steward of their personal private data, particularly unions and regulators. They have all sorts of very personal information about people's, where they live and even who their family members are. So that trust has to be 100% in there to be responsible with AI. The other stakeholders, of course, are your staff. We'll talk about that too, and all the way up to the board. And that is true that there are risks with AI, and there's significant risks, particularly with not-for-profits and based on the type of member data that I just described that you have in your databases. And a lot of the tools out there aren't built with that in mind. A lot of these tools are built for the for-profit industry where they just don't live with those type of constraints. So trying to understand what tools are available and what you can use, knowing that you need to keep this in a very tight, secure environment is important. And we'll explore a couple I think it's important for not-for-profits to be aware of. And also how this data can be exposed by accident if you're not super careful. We have been the last 2 years at Bursting Silver heavily investing in artificial intelligence. Part of our presentations to our customers about this is some of the things we've done, and they find that some of the things that we've done at our organization are things they can take away and actually start to do it there. So we'll talk about that as well. We're not really here to talk about tools specifically, however. It is about how you at your organization can roll out AI responsibly and how you can be a thought leader in the space within your organization. Now we're to have these sort of consultations and conversations with the executives in our client base. We wanted to ground ourselves in the perspective of the broader world when it comes to not-for-profits, not just our immediate clients that we're familiar with. So we've looked at a couple different organizations for data in this regard. The first one is the AI Institute.cloud. And that's a new organization, and its membership is made up of not-for-profits, unions, regulators, associations, royal colleges, and they're also, to be a member, you need to be an executive level at that type of organization to join. And then they're a very data-driven organization, so they survey their membership. So these stats that we're looking at here are directly from their most recent survey of their membership. No huge surprises here. Fewer than 5% of not-for-profits, member-based organizations, don't feel that they're highly prepared for this new AI age. Strategic clarity is a very pressing challenge for almost 2/3 of them. Up to 80% cite that their general staff awareness is a major capability gap in them thriving in the AI age, whereas about 85% surveyed report no engagement improvement using AI. So what does that mean? Well, we have an experience with an organization that actually has been able to use AI to improve member engagement. And they actually were featured in the last webinar I did, but for those of you that didn't join, it's the IMES users group. And they approached us about a year ago and asked if we could help them develop a chatbot for their website, and specifically a chatbot that was going to be trained on their members' discussions about their specialty topic. So the software that they specialize in. Members were asking questions out to the broader community for help, and then members would come and answer those questions. They had a rich treasure trove of this type of back and forth training going back years. So we could use that to train a chatbot, deploy it onto their website, their member-only protected pages, and then all of a sudden the members could get access to an instant expert in the software very quickly, and that's saved them a lot of time. And they're seeing a lot of engagement. They're getting a few hundred people a month come to that, and they've noticed an increase in member retention since launching that. So there's an example, and it wasn't really a huge project to improve member engagement with AI. The last stat here is from the World Economic Forum, and this is across all sectors, so for-profit, not-for-profit, government, education, etc. It's their Future of Jobs report, and they're predicting that about 60% of staff across the world need upskilling by 2030. And that's, again, what I was referring to earlier, in order to stay relevant and have their job skills competitive in just the next few years. When we share that with the executives on these outreach calls we're doing, really nobody seems to be very surprised by any of this, but it's just good to validate that our assumptions of where member-based organizations are is the case. As a summary, there's a lot of pressure to implement AI, but not a lot of clarity on how to execute. So of course, security is a critical piece of AI rollout. And here are 3 key drivers we need to understand to be successful with AI rollout. Trust starts with privacy. So you won't gain the trust of any of your members or your staff or the board or other stakeholders if you're not really clear on how your data is being used with artificial intelligence. Absolutely crucial. Otherwise, there's no trust. To achieve that, there's awareness that not all tools are equal. Of course, the free tools pose the highest risk, but it's not just the free tools that can burn you and introduce risk that you might not be aware of. And so we'll talk about that further on in this presentation. And really what that comes down to is your policy matters. You need to have a well-structured and clear AI usage policy at your organization that's going to be quite prescriptive about how AI can be used, which tools can be used, and what data can be used. And we have content on that coming up in this presentation. So, talking about privacy, what are the concerns here? Like, why don't we just give staff access to ChatGPT and let them go wild with it? There's definitely huge productivity boosts associated with using ChatGPT. And, I've used it helping prepare this presentation, to be perfectly frank. And it helps in many different ways. But when you use ChatGPT, you're sharing data with ChatGPT, with OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT. And there's good reason why we might not want to trust these companies, that they will just be very careful and respectful with our data. And of course, if it's a member-based organization, staff using it, there's a very high likelihood the member data will get exposed. I feel there's strong reason to be just trustful of a lot of these companies. In particular, like OpenAI, which is the biggest startup in the world, doesn't make money and they lose money. And so they're trying hard to grow their paid user, and that's their great plan to become profitable. But there's a bit of a problem with that, and that's just a screenshot from yesterday. And this is the downloads of free apps on the iPhone platform. So Apple's technology. And the number one free app on the Apple iPhone platform is Google Gemini, the Google direct competitor to ChatGPT. So that's pretty amazing that on the Apple Store, the Google product is the number one free app. They're obviously competitors in many ways. So if you're still not sure, let's just take a walk down memory lane. I'm old enough to remember the last time this big, huge new technology wave kind of emerged and everyone was super excited about it. And the companies that were doing it decided that they would be, fully trustworthy, and they promised, and their policy stated that they would never share your data or sell it, and they would protect it. And you can go and upload all your photos and all your kids' photos and tell them everything you know about yourself. And there was a problem with that business model, and that they didn't have a profitable business model. So what do? They just changed their policy, and it's pretty convenient for them. This is the most famous scandal of one of many. We'll breeze review just to nail the point home. But in this case, one of the company had harvested, Cambridge Analytical had harvested tens of millions of Facebook users' data by just doing this fun little quiz, personality quiz that people could try. And they took that and they sold it off to political parties that could then use it to target advertisements, political advertisements. Now, Facebook didn't directly do this themselves, but they enabled the conditions that made it possible and failed to act promptly when that problem came forward. So there's just endless amount of proof that these big tech companies really are much more interested in profit and shareholder value than they are about your data. What's the saying in Silicon Valley is move fast and break things. Well, maybe that's okay if you're building some sort of apps, but it's with my personal data or member data, that's simply not cool. So there's just they're completely unscrupulous. And sometimes I don't think you hear about these too much in the news, but it's like, well, who has a huge amount of influence over the news media? Well, it's these social media companies that can actually gateway control over to who goes to their news sites. So anyhow, that is just a list, and that's just from one company. Now we might think, well, with OpenAI, let's assume that, so ChatGPT or others, let's assume that they actually will find a profit model and they will honor the commitments they're making right now about how they will use our data. It might be beyond their control so what they say is if you're using their paid version, they're not going to train on your data, and then they're going to purge your data after 30 days, and they keep it for 30 days just for auditing their systems and quality control and the rest of that. Well, right now there's a lawsuit filed by New York Times against OpenAI. And specifically, the lawsuit alleges, probably accurately, that they used a lot of copywritten material to train their, ChatGPT large language model, and that then at the same time, when their users are interacting with it, it's distributing copywritten material. So the court is ordering OpenAI to preserve those chats. So even if OpenAI says we're going to delete your stuff, right now, to my understanding, I'm not a lawyer, but they can't. So maybe you're convinced by now. I don't know. There's other ways too to be aware, right? So this is sort of a vein of thinking of not just letting your staff go wild with trying all sorts of different tools that they find on the internet with the hope of a productivity boost. This is from a presentation I did a couple years ago on AI, and I thought it'd be fun to try one of these tools where you can have an AI generated headshot, and they're fun. And you have to upload a whole bunch of really close-up photos of yourself to their servers, and then they come back and give you hundreds of different scenarios, and some look like you and some don't. The feedback I got is they make me look pretty angry, and I guess I don't like taking selfies, so I guess when I was going around my house taking lots of selfies of myself, I was just looking pretty angry about the whole thing. But the problem here is I did it, I paid them, they got their money, And then I said, okay, look, I'm canceling now. Can you please delete all of the pictures you have of me off your servers? And crickets. I never heard from anyone on this. So, again, you can't trust these tools. Last story along these lines. And again, I'm sure you probably have IT controls in place to prevent this type of thing. But this solution called Magical was also something I thought could be helpful to our clients. The idea behind this tool is that you can have multiple tabs open in your browser, and you can then click a button and it's going to create a whole spreadsheet based on those tabs. So their example is if you are planning a trip and you're looking at a dozen or 2 dozen different properties on Airbnb to evaluate which one is going to be the best one for you. It's kind of a hard interface to do that. You click this button and it's going to grab all the important data from each of those different listings and create a nice spreadsheet for you. Well, our customers use association management solutions where each person's record is its own web page. I thought, well, you could have a dozen different member records open and then get a whole report based on that. It's one click. I thought that could be useful. But when I decided to give it a try, luckily I read the terms of what they want me to agree to. And in this case, they wanted to be able to see, edit, create, and delete all of my Google Sheets and my whole, they didn't limit it to one folder, it's just everything. And, we had all sorts of confidential data in spreadsheets, including client data, HR data, etc. So luckily I read the terms and rejected them. But this is a reason why it's really important to ensure that your staff, hopefully even can, like a great IT policy, of course, is to not just let staff download and install things and agree to things, and that you have that control over their laptop or their computer, their workstation, or their phone. Smaller workplaces might not have those levels of control. And that's where education and really tight policy is really key. We also have other areas of risk that your AI governance policy needs to cover, because none of us want to be this guy. He's a lawyer that decided he was going to use ChatGPT to help him in his defense or prosecution, whichever side he was on. He was looking for precedent law to cite in the courtroom, and he did. Much to the surprise of the judge, who had never heard of the cases he was referring to, and lo and behold, when she checked, it turned out that he was using ChatGPT that was just making up precedent cases lawsuits that never even happened. So again, what we're going to, and we'll cover that in a bit, how to create a good AI governance policy is to make sure this type of thing doesn't happen, that humans are still vetting and responsible for the output that they're doing. So rolling out AI at your organization, we've seen a lot of examples of what risks are and how to, well, not how to avoid them, but just what you want to avoid. But we want to explore with our customers that rolling out AI is a different kind of project than an IT project. When we talk to our customers about it, we say this is more about executing your existing strategy and finding tools to help do that, rather than being a single project where you can go and implement AI. So we at Bursting Silver, like I said earlier, have well over a decade of rolling out CRMs and association management solutions and new websites and learning management solutions and integrations. All those are significant IT projects, and primarily spearheaded by the IT department with some executive oversight. And you have a pretty prescribed output and result that you're going to be having, and you have the timeframes and the stakeholders, and that can be executed over several months or years in a large project. We think of AI as differently, a different way to think about it and approach it. The goal here is not to disrupt your existing workflow and your existing teams or disrupt your current projects. So we do, talk to clients about AI, and they will say, well, we just don't have time now to implement AI because our teams are just so busy with all our existing projects, and maybe we'll look at doing it next year. So that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that approach. But what we encourage them to think about is that with AI, there's actually really simple, easy wins you can put in place that actually help your team deliver on their existing projects just faster and better. So that's the exploration. And this is also where we share some of the things at Bursting Silver we've done to be more productive and what we deliver and how we conduct business. So we had, when ChatGPT came out 2 years ago, we realized we really had to kind of learn about this technology and figure out how we can apply it within ourselves and then help our customers apply it as well. We started with what we call hack days. This is where different teams at Bursting Silver would get a half day or full day, and the whole company would participate. And even within teams, we'd break into smaller teams of 2 or 3 people. And the task was for each small team to think about a business process or some way we support our clients or help, or some admin tasks or some drudgery or data entry, things where we had a theory that maybe AI could help us achieve a better result and save time. And then, we gave them permission to experiment and find a tool and see how it could be applied. And at the end of the day, everybody shared the results. And some of them were really positive things that we adopted. We've even started to roll out, we have 2 new AI products that were partly birthed through that type of experience. And this doesn't take a lot of time, and it starts building that muscle memory of how you can actually use AI to, without carving out a lot of time in people's schedules, find some productivity boosts. So we expanded that to an ongoing methodology, and that process is that on each of our different teams, we wanted to find someone who had the interest and the aptitude to become what we call an AI evangelist. And so we have sort of this cross-team team, and they just spend a few hours every month doing the exact same kind of exercise, look at business workflows and processes that they have and things that they deliver for clients or helping support clients, and look for ways AI or different tools could help support that. And then on a monthly basis, they share their findings with each other, and then the ones that have the most promise, we roll out across the company. And so every month, we're slowly becoming more proficient in using AI to conduct our business, to deliver service for our clients, save ourselves time, and take away some of the drudgery work that people don't really enjoy doing. So that's quite successful, and it isn't, like I said, this is not carving out a lot of time. It's not repurposing teams away from their busy delivery schedules right now. So we've had feedback from some of the executives we talked to that that's ideas they think they could try there. We are a for-profit company, but the structure and the rollout actually really works, and regardless of what type of organization you are. We also encourage organizations to do some self-assessment of where they are on their AI journey. And we look at this as a bit of a spectrum, whether they're not ready to start yet. I talked to you about some organizations that felt they're just too busy with their current workload to consider it. And so delaying looking at it till later, that's fine. That's where they are. Some are dipping their toes in, some they're treading water, some are winning races. There's no wrong place to be in this. It's just about knowing, if you want to get to somewhere, you need to understand where you are in order to get that. The way we look at it is that the goal here is progress, not perfection. So I should say that we are here to help you wherever you are on this spectrum, get you to the next stage and make progress in a way that works well for you. And we'll talk about some of the offerings that we have along those lines that we can have available there on our website as well. The other key component about rolling out AI at your organization is your greatest asset, and that is your people. Well, let's face it, people have feelings, and AI generates a lot of concerns. We talked earlier about people worried that they're not using AI in their job, they're falling behind in their competitiveness in the job marketplace. There's another concern. The concern is AI is going to come and take their job away. And Bursting Silver 2 has people, and the people, it's the same issue. So how we addressed it is to just acknowledge, that's like an elephant in the room. Let's just acknowledge that that's a concern people have, and then talk about how our goal, our rollout, and the way we're going to go about doing it is not about replacing people. So address that fear head on, and talk about how AI should be automating the boring parts of their job they don't like. AI should make them more productive in their roles and their departments more productive. It should unlock new opportunities, new roles. It should allow them to try new initiatives they don't otherwise have time for. And other things that are really valuable, which is being able to focus more on members, individual members, help members with their problem, answer their questions. So rather than just doing data entry, you can do a lot more value-added items when AI is taking care of some of the drudgery or the just the mundane things that no one really enjoys doing. So reassure them that the AI is about augmentation of the team. It's not about replacing anyone. And the goal is to help them focus on more of the parts that they enjoy. So some of the tactics that work when rolling out AI and engaging staff is basically what I described about what we were doing here before. You should have defined periods. You find the team, or it could be just one person, depending on your size, and give them a prescribed period that's repeated. If you say, okay, go and find some AI tools and let us know how it goes, there's a high likelihood that they won't get back to you ever, because everyone's busy. So having well-defined time periods and sprints really helps kind of discipline that they know they have 4 hours this month to attempt and try something and share it back with stakeholders. Now it's experimental. Some will try and not succeed, but others will. And when they do, maybe just a 4-hour commitment or investment, and most of these tools are not very expensive in terms of a monthly fee, you might get huge productivity boosts. So it's a really good opportunity if to find those wins. So that does involve then showing that to their peers, getting feedback, and ultimately, if it's deemed a successful experiment, the executives endorse it, roll it out across the company. Of course, this is under the AI guidance framework to ensure that they're using tools and data responsibly. I should add, whenever we're doing our hackathons or these experimentations, we do have an AI guidance policy at Bursting Silver, but even beyond that, we typically would always use just dummy data, which ChatGPT is really good at generating dummy data if you want to play with tools and that type of thing. So we encourage to, think about what is one first step you can take, right? It could be that developing that AI guidance, formalize your thoughts and strategies and policies when it comes to AI. That's a great first step if you haven't done that. It could be something small like just a little chatbot that's on your website and answers questions from members or prospective members. It doesn't have to be some expert bot that knows everything and can answer every question about the history of your organization and every rule or regulation or policy you operate under. Maybe it's just on 1 or 2 pages that can answer questions about a specific event policy, right? Anything that you're finding that is tying up staff's time that a bot on the website might be able to reduce the amount of inquiries people are getting is a really easy and a great initial win. So there we go. If you are interested in some free resources and ideas about how you can use artificial intelligence, we do have a series of white papers, our AI Impact series at Bursting Silver. And these are tailored to different sectors, unions, associations, regulatory bodies. They will give you examples of how you can pick one of your business processes or business drivers and have AI help deliver that and save time, money, improve member service, improve member engagement. So that's all there. It's all free for you to grab from our website, burstingsilver.com. We also have an offering of our AI Smart Start. So this is really our ability to come in and work with you and your team. And we talked about sort of the spectrum of wanting to make progress on that, really help you take some significant leaps forward, from wherever you are to wherever the next step is. And so, this can be a great way to get some help. This is not, most unions, regulatory bodies, associations, licensing bodies, credentialing bodies, they're not really expert at kind of rolling out new IT and understanding their business process and finding technology to help them improve on those. Well, that's what we've been doing for many years before AI came around. And now we've learned the AI tools as well to help you move forward with that. So that information about that is also on our website. But one of the most important things to do, and something we did very early in our AI journey at Bursting Silver, is to create an AI usage policy. Now, this is a topic, obviously, that could take a full webinar to go over each one of these different key tenets. Has a lot of information and considerations around it. But yeah, at a high level, you have to make sure your compliance and your ethical alignment. So this is complying with the laws in your country, in your province or state, and regulations you operate under, whether it's GDPR, HIPAA, PIPEDA, CCPA. Even though AI is super exciting, doesn't mean we can just forget about all those boring regulations that restrict us all. Make sure we're doing responsible data practices. So we don't want to have the email come in, and we'll talk about this in a couple of minutes when we get talking about our tools. But when the email comes in with the member, you don't want to be grabbing that, copying and pasting it into ChatGPT and asking it to help you write a response. We'll briefly talk about why you don't want to do that. Human oversight and transparency. particularly if AI is making decisions or broadly swaying what is decisions that are being made. You don't want it to be doing this autonomously. You'd still want to have human oversight and human responsibility over all the output that's occurring. Now, for us, that means thinking about different ways you're using AI and putting in the appropriate oversight, or sometimes it's communication and control. So what do I mean by that? Well, any decision that's being made at your organization, even if AI is assisting it, needs a human who's already making that decision to vet that, and then, yes, allow that to go forward. If it's something different, like the chatbot we described earlier for the misuse group, we want to make sure that the people understand that they're interacting with AI, right? That's part of the ethical alignment and human oversight. If someone is interacting with a bot and they think it's a human, you've kind of crossed some boundaries and violated trust. So for the example of our IMS users group sort of software expert bot on their website, we actually had people fill in a waiver that makes them, testify that they understand that they're talking with an AI, that the AI could give them potentially bad advice, and that they need to make sure they're applying this in a way that's safe or talking to experts before they do anything risky, et cetera, et cetera. So they can't interact with it until they sign that off. If it's a chatbot on your website that's answering questions about your contact information or some basic things, you probably don't need to have them sign off a waiver like that, but that would be important that you make it clear that they're not talking with the person. Accountability and risk mitigation. Again, we're talking about how using AI can really expose a lot of data. So to prevent that from happening, someone has to be accountable to make sure that doesn't happen. Technology stewardship, well, you might have a great AI governance and usage policy, but if you're just choosing technology that isn't enforcing it, then you've really failed in that regard. So if you're deciding to use a shared environment where your data is going to be exposed to other users outside your organization, you haven't achieved your goals there. And last but not least is data residency, and that applies to some organizations more than others, but I know particularly in Canada and Europe and New Zealand, Australia, et cetera, they have rules that their member data, sometimes laws and regulations, that their member data can't exit their geographical boundaries. So that's important to consider. We'll explore that a little bit later in this presentation. And just the resources that have a lot of good information on this are CSAE and ASAE, where I grabbed this cartoon from. All right, well, let's talk a couple of minutes talking about some tools that I think are important for member-based organizations to be aware of. But why are we doing this in the first place? Why are we thinking about using AI at our organization? Well, it's like, why do we use any technology, right? Ultimately, there's expenditure and effort in implementing it and using it. We need to make sure that we are getting a return on investment. So if we think about the productivity boost, I think the for-profit sector is seeing with a tool like ChatGPT, you have 50 staff and it saves them 15 minutes a day. That's 5 hours saved per month. Average salary with all the overhead costs, insurance and training and everything, vacation, could be up to $60 an hour. That's $300 saved per staff member per month. Well, for 50 staff, that's $15,000 a month saved. So that's real money, and that's why everyone is kind of flipping out about AI in general. The potential to save money and get a lot more done is there. It's not hype, and we've experienced that at Bursting Silver. So here are some tools to two of them I think is important we talk about. One is ChatGPT, which I want to share is what I don't think is appropriate for member-based organizations to use, and I'll just explain briefly why. So talking about ChatGPT, let's think of a very simple use case that would maybe your organization would use. Okay, so here's my resume. Now, this isn't my real resume. I haven't actually updated my resume in 20 years. Over 20 years. So it was much easier for me to go to ChatGPT and say, hey, make me a fake resume. So this is a fake resume. But what is in it? It's all my contact information and emails, and there's names and phone numbers of references. That is personally identifiable information. But let's say you have dozens of these resumes and you want to be able to quickly say, well, who in this list of resumes has PowerPoint skills? Well, ChatGPT and these other tools are really good for that. I should say this, I think this is about $30 per user per month. So if you have a lot of staff, it adds up pretty quickly. And we talked about their data retention policies that they're currently being sued. So lots of reasons why I don't think this is a great fit for not-for-profits. But let's explore this use case. Here is all the PII that is going to be used as part of this example. So ChatGPT, I'm sure you've all seen it. You can add a file to it. You can choose your file, and then it's available for you to ask questions to. Now, this could be dozens of files. We're just doing the one to make it simple. But you can say, does Keith have PowerPoint skills, or who in this list of resumes has PowerPoint skills? And it comes back and gives you a really good answer, gives it back quickly. It's generally really accurate these days. I know in the earlier days, first couple of years ago, you'd see a lot more hallucinations. They've steadily increased it to make this accurate and strong and smart. But what's happened there? So in this one example, we've taken my resume and it's being sent over to this company called OpenAI that has data centers all over the world, right? So now my personal information is being shared with them. Well, if you have all your staff using it on a regular basis, over time, pretty much all your confidential data has been shared with this third-party company. Not a great option for member-based organizations. So one tool that we've built, which we're very excited about, is called Saphion. And this was built specifically to help address a lot of the concerns we've been talking about throughout this webinar so far. It gives staff at member-based organizations the ability to see huge productivity boosts using essentially ChatGPT type knowledge and skills and capabilities. And actually behind the scenes, we do use the OpenAI engine, or you have a choice to use that amongst others. But what is the difference? Well, this is a layer of software that actually is going to strip out all of that PII information that we looked at earlier. So whether it's uploading a bunch of files like resumes up into your Saphion assistant, or it's asking the question, does Keith have PowerPoint skills, or who in this list has PowerPoint skills? All of that data, all the PII information will be identified and then redacted and then tokenized with logical holders like we're seeing right here, first name one, last name one, first name two, last name two. So by the time it's being sent out to any of the large language models that you choose to work with, it's actually not sharing that with them. It's all retained inside of the Saphion layer. Saphion is something you can host yourselves if you want to put it in a server in your office or your Azure or your AWS. So this way it keeps all your member PII data inside of your infrastructure. So how does it look, if you add in my resume into Saphion? Well, this is the example here. Now, of course, technically, this isn't what's happening behind the scenes. We're converting the document into RAG and tokenizing it. And there's lots of things happening. But for the intent of like how the only view OpenAI or the other ones ever get of this resume looks like this. And even beyond that point, we only share the parts of the resumes that are important for it to do to give us an answer back. So that's the nice thing about this solution. Now I will just give a quick overview demo here. Interface is very straightforward in the sense you can have different assistants available for different purposes. In this case, we are just having a general knowledge bot like you might for using ChatGPT. We've put in here some text about an email is received with a complaint and contains a lot of personal identifiable information. And our staff at our organization just wants help with this, right? So, sorry, the scroll bar is in front of what we're trying to look at. But here, before it gets sent, we have this chance to look at what is going to get sent. And you can see even social insurance numbers, bank account numbers, phone numbers, locations have been removed. And we can now ask it like, well, this is a lot of long blurb of text. Can you please summarize this for me? So we're setting that out and it's being processed, and the large language model is going to do its thing and we'll receive it back. And then when we receive it back, we're just going to be re-injecting the PII information so that the end user, your staff, don't see that tokenized stuff. They see Emily Thompson again. So that's what's exciting about this offering, that it gives them the ability to gain the productivity boost, but not actually have to redact it themselves. Here's an example. You can just create an assistant, and luckily large language models are forgiving on bad spelling. but we'll fix that one in just a second. There we go. So you can give your assistant a title, and then you can provide it with instructions as to what its role is, what its job is. And when you create that assistant, it's there available for you to use, but you can supply it with training material. So in this case, this is just going to throw up our organization's employee guide and our staff directory. And once we save that, we can then have a conversation with that assistant about that information. So you could have this rolled out to all your staff in your organization and cut down on some of the questions back and forth. We all get inundated with too many Slack channels or too many emails. If your staff can self-serve, it's going to just help everyone be productive and have less interruptions. So in this case, it's told us accurately who the CTO is off that spreadsheet. We can ask follow-up questions like, who does Peyton Brown report to? And it'll give us a bit of a directory of that reporting structure. So what's really exciting for us now, and for those of you going to Washington next week, we will see you there and show you more of this. But we now have the ability to train an assistant on IMIS. So IMIS can be a data source for your Saffion assistant. So what does that mean? You just choose that as an option. And within Saffion, you're going to see a list of all your IMIS RISE folders. So RISE is the content management system in IMIS. And we can just go skip in and choose any of the web folders that have content that we want to have our assistant be an expert on. Similarly, we have a list of IQAs we can use as training data for our assistant. In this case, we're choosing specific IQAs to get the data from them. And you can use a mix of RISE web folders and IQAs as training data for your assistant. So in this example, we're going to create a little assistant that's going to help our team in the events department, right? So we're grabbing all the content from the annual website, all the content from the annual conference website, and we're going to go in and grab a bunch of IQAs that we've defined that include the details of the event, the pricing, who's registered, what the different functions are for that event. So we're just going to choose those as our training sources. And then we get up to our top and we're going to hit that little train now button. And then that's going to start grabbing the data out of IMIS, the content and data out of IMIS, and putting it into Saffion. But as I described earlier, you have the attendee list of hundreds of people with a lot of personally identifiable information in it. Well, that's not getting stored in the Saffion RAG that could then be later shared with one of the large language models. It's going to be first name 1, first name 300, first name whatever, email 159, etc. So here we've trained it, and we can ask some basic questions about that annual conference assistant. What are the accommodations? Well, it comes back with the information that was in IMIS. And you can ask questions about what sessions. You can ask who's registered, what's the pricing. It's an AI assistant now that is being trained on your IMIS information and on your IMIS data. I think we'll just ask one more. Is there any sessions discussing stress? So it can answer those questions. And I'm just going to skip ahead because we're getting a bit short on time. What we have done now as well is once you trained it inside of your Saffion interface with your data from IMIS, you can deploy that right back inside of your IMIS environment as a little chatbot. And you can deploy it anywhere because it's an iPart, which is a widget. So if we've created that assistant that knows all about our events, both the web content and the data about the event registration functions and etc., we can have the staff right inside of IMIS interact with that data in a chatbot format. So obviously we're super excited about that. And we have one more example here. So we have a case management solution for IMIS, and that is where organizations like unions might have grievances or regulatory bodies have to investigate members that there's a complaint against. We have a solution for that, but now we can actually create an assistant right inside of that solution that will be able to give a summary of that case. Some of these cases have, gone on for years. They have hundreds of different activity or calls and logs, or dozens and dozens of different documents. So this gives people the ability now if they're want a refresher on the case or want to kind of get a recall of information that was in a document, but which document was it in, they can go and use the same capabilities right inside of IMIS and so you have your sort of assistant that's a little bit of an expert on this specific case right in this page. Super exciting stuff for us about that. So look forward to, and if anybody's interested in a demo or more information, all my contact information is at the end of this presentation. One thing we're doing with the Saffion offering is to sell it on a per assistant basis. We have a discounted offer right now, and so it makes the pricing and sort of just dipping your toes in this area much easier than I think probably the other offering most of our clients, not-for-profits in general, would be looking at, which is Microsoft Copilot. So let's talk about Microsoft Copilot. I just do have to say, prepared to be confused. Copilot is Microsoft's AI offering, and basically is kind of a catch-all phrase for most of their AI offerings, except there's one that's not called Copilot, that's an AI offering. So confusing already, right? I do want to say I am not an expert at Microsoft Copilot or Microsoft licensing. A lot of this information I'm sharing now is from a great, well, he works at his name's Earl Moya. He works at CPABC, and we spend a lot of time just sort of collaborating and sharing information. And he knows a lot about Microsoft, and they've done a lot over at CPABC. And I'm trying to have him join me for one of these webinars just to share his expertise, and he's just right up there with anyone else. So a lot of this information I've been able to get thanks to him because I have not, we're not Microsoft partners in that sense. But most of our customers are using Microsoft in one way or another. And when we talk to some customers about the concerns about data and privacy, they will say, well, we already trust Microsoft with our email and our SharePoint. So it seems like makes the most amount of sense to use Microsoft Copilot for AI assistance or ChatGPT type of functionality. And there's nothing wrong with that line of reasoning. But I think particularly for larger organizations that have that IT department, that have the capabilities to navigate this rather confusing world. So let's talk about Copilot. Copilot is actually 3 different products, all named Copilot. There's Copilot for Office 365, and there's Copilot Studio. So each of these are separate products, really. They have separate licensing, separate pricing. And they have one other offering called Azure OpenAI. Okay, so these are all from Microsoft, and they're just different. Microsoft can be confusing. This is Copilot. And this is basically an offering a lot like ChatGPT. It's actually using the same large language model, GPT-5, that you get to use with OpenAI. And same interaction. You can take my resume, ask the same question, you'll get back a pretty decent answer. And like I said, the model it uses is GPT-5. And that's powerful. So again, when you take your resume and you put it in, it's going into Microsoft. But it's a little bit more complex than that because, as I talked about earlier, with data residency requirements, there's a lot more thinking to be done and a lot more setup and configuration to be understood and licensing and pricing to be understood. This is Copilot for Microsoft 365 is what we just looked at. And so, sorry, the next one we're going to look at is Copilot for Microsoft Office 365. And this gets embedded right inside of your existing Microsoft Office suite. So it is an additional license you have to purchase. And then when you get it, when you're opening your resume or a Word document, it can give you a summary. You can pop up a little chat and have an interactive chat with it. Now, there is a chance that you're already, you have this as part of your existing Microsoft license. Otherwise, it's additional costs, but works with Excel, Outlook, PowerPoint, Teams, helps you draft documents and summarize emails, create presentations. And sorry, one sec here. So then we have Copilot Studio. So this is similar to what I showed with Saffion, where you can, not just have a chat, but you can actually train it on your own materials. So your files, your SharePoint websites, your OneDrive drives, and they call this a no-code, low-code platform for building and customizing your own Copilots. So these would be chatbots, virtual agents. I would say this is most similar functionality to Saffion, which I showed earlier. So this does let you integrate different data sources, but these are going to be ones that are inside your Microsoft ecosystem. And deploying those assistants outside of your Microsoft ecosystem is possible, but not easy. So then that brings up this whole topic I've alluded to a couple times, data residency. This as well could be a long presentation to talk about it, but it's important to understand, as I said earlier, that Copilot for Office 365, and Copilot Studio and Azure OpenAI are all separate products. Each have different security and different data residency controls. So long story short, when you just say, okay, great, let me have a license for Copilot for Office, or just Copilot, and your staff are using it, you don't know where that information is going globally. And there are ways to restrict that and set that up, but you'd have to have more patience than me. So one option, though, that you can control the residency of the AI data is with their Microsoft Azure OpenAI service. So this is something you can, like if you're using Azure already, you probably have already decided that your residency is going to be in your country. So Microsoft Azure actually hosts OpenAI's models in their own data centers. So if you're using, if you want to use the Microsoft OpenAI Azure offering, then you can know where that data is going. But the problem with Azure OpenAI is that it's just for programmers. So if you're building applications and you want some AI and you want to make sure it stays in your country, this is a great offering. But of all the ones I described earlier, this one doesn't actually have an interface that your staff can interact with. Well, what we're excited about is that Saffion can be used with this environment. So in this model, you could host Saffion yourself, or we can host it in the country you're choosing. All the data gets redacted, and then the large language model it's calling out to and interacting with is located in your country as well. So, happy to talk a lot more about that to anybody who is interested. Microsoft Copilot Studio licensing is complex. Quickly, because I'm just sort of a bit short on time, I want to have time for Q&A. This is all from ChatGPT, because this one page for this one product is 20 pages long, the licensing guide. Microsoft Copilot Pro costs about $20 per month per user. Microsoft 365 Copilot was listed as $30 per month per user, and so presumably together you got to combine those prices together. I'm sure they have some other sort of licensing options. If you get both, you get a discount. I don't know. And then the Copilot Studio has message packs of $200 US per month for a certain amount, and then if you go over that, you'll be paying extra or pay-as-you-go models. And then the last one we looked at, OpenAI Azure, is a pay-as-you-go type service, so it can actually be really cheap if you're not using it much. They do have, I won't even go through all this, they have an online pricing calculator that you can plug in different parameters, how many staff you have, how many different assistants, how many times per month you think people will be interacting with it. I got pricing for Copilot Studio Agent here, varying from 125 US per month to 1,250 US per month, and I couldn't detect the pattern of why it was varying so wildly. But let's skip through all that. So just in closing, to get to the Q&A, AI is reshaping how problems are solved and how services are delivered and how missions are advanced. Organizations that embrace this shift now can harness the capabilities to shape the future of AI rather than simply navigate it. So we do encourage people to be experimental, right? There's a lot of learning in this exercise, but if you like learning, it can be fun. You want to be curious, but you also need to be cautious because of the importance of the data that we're protecting. But with curiosity and learning and proper oversight, you can achieve those huge productivity boosts using AI. Get an experimental mindset, not perfectionist, and values driven. Values are still the most important thing. We don't compromise on our customer service because we have AI tools that make our lives easier. The same way you don't do it with your member service. Okay, with that having been said, I'm going to see how I can get into the QA section. Riley, any advice on how I do that? That's one thing I'm not sure here.
Just at the top, I'm looking at the QA right now. I don't think we have any questions. It sounds like you're answering all of them. But
Oh,
yeah, we
goodness
have the
gracious.
QA feature at the top, as well as the chat.
Okay.
Just a heads up, we can see the gather office.
Yeah,
Everybody at BSI working there. Yeah, okay.
that's one of our tools. I'm okay. I thought I was looking for
Yeah.
the Q&A thing and I couldn't see it when the presentation was open. So uh, there we go. I will stop sharing. So we use Gather at our office. It's a really actual cool tool.
Yes, would agree. Well, yeah, for the slides there, if you wanted to toss up your
Hmm.
email, if
Thank
people
you.
have questions to contact or reach out,
I'm
they're
going to do that
probably
now.
still they drank from the fire hose. So
I know there's a lot there, right? But we can't do a 2-hour webinar. That's just not fair to people. Well, definitely through Bursting Silver, you can just reach out to contact us. But here is more specifically, you can find me at kstout at burstingsilver.com. Our website is burstingsilver.com. And there's my LinkedIn as well. But anything that I said resonated with you want to have additional conversations, I'm happy to do this kind of presentation for the executives or other stakeholders at your organization. I do enjoy talking about these things. That's why I get to do a webinar every couple months. They let me. And if we don't have any questions, I think we can call that a day. At least a morning for me. I'm in Vancouver.
yeah, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Keith. Fantastic as always, and thank you everybody for attending. This recording will be up momentarily on our YouTube, our website, and pushed to your email there. So have a great day, enjoy the rest of your week, and take care, everyone.
See some of you in Washington. Looking forward to it.